Good morning, class. This is the welcome to Los Angeles Chess Club, intermediate class, and your teacher this morning, National Master Ruben Ondungen, right? And former Hawaii State champion. There you go. And this morning, I would like to show a game that I played in way back in 2012 when I won the Metropolitan PD qualifier in June, right? And that PD qualifier allowed me to play in the International Open by October. So here are the game, and my opponent is National Master Craig Klowitter, a very top competitor. And the game went e4. I was white, and he played the French. Now, a little background of this game: before this round took place, we were both together by Starbucks, right there in Starbucks, and he saw me preparing, and I saw him preparing. We're hiding each other's laptop. Right, so it was a funny incident before an actual game, and I said this guy played the French very well, and he really knows the system, all the lines, and there's no way to surprise him in the opening. So I decided to choose a variation that if you open a book on a French defense, it will be in the very last page. So you see, a lot of players, a lot of students will read the first few chapters. Rarely that anybody go to the very last page of a chess book. So that's what I decided. Let me choose a line that is called under odds and ends. So after e6, I play knight f3. Look at me, and he continued to play d5. And I played knight c3. And not a really standard way of playing against the French. Even our master here, Mick, said, is that even possible against the French? I know it works in the Caro, but I don't know about the French. I said, well, if it works in the Caro-Can, why not in the French? So, well, it doesn't violate a principle because it develops pieces rapidly, right? You already have 2 out against 0 for black. So after knight c3, he played knight f6. And you will notice that after a few moves, we will go back to some familiar territory. However, we're able to cut black's choices by playing knight f3, knight c3. For example, we prevented the winnower, one of the most dangerous lines for white to face against the French. So here, after knight f6, I played, what should you play if you're white here, class?
You play e5.
Play e5 and gain a tempo. Not only that, you went across the port line. That means you start gaining space in the early stage of the game. That constitutes some sort of advantage.
Would anybody move the knight to e5? Would it?
Knight e5 has no intrinsic value. So it has no purpose at all because, for example, maybe your idea was to play a check here. However, this pawn is not yet up. Correct. And that contains an idea a little bit, but it's not yet. So here, we might as well gain a tempo, right? Where does the knight go? PD Master Mark Duckworth played knight g8 against me, and I was shocked. However, I won that game. That will be another subject next time. But for the meantime, let's concentrate on these 2 games. And he played knight f to d7. And after d4, now we are in a familiar form of the French, probably French classical, except there's no f4. And after d4, standard c5. Okay, now here, class, black created what we call the French wall, f7, e6, d5. And their most common theme for black is to use the c pawn as the destroyer of white's center. So here, it will be very nice if this knight is not sitting here, so we can play c3 just like in the advanced variation. However, this is not the case here. White has been playing with pieces. You notice that. It's about piece play. So that should give you an idea on white's next move. Anybody? Bishop b5 pins the knight.
Bishop g5.
Bishop g5 is better because it tempo the queen. And for example, black can go wrong here. F6 was played against me by a very strong expert. I forgot his name, but actually the computer said it's not good. However, here there are Queen A5 was played by Mark Duckworth against me. And the most Bishop E7 probably considered a mistake, maybe even a blunder. Why? Because after Bishop E7, we have Knight B5. And this looks very dangerous because after, for example, Bishop takes, the intermezzo check comes in with very strong effect on the position. Knight D6 check. Correct? Or, I'm sorry, you can just simply capture and then Knight D6 check. After Queen takes, Knight D6 check. Right? The king cannot go D8 because of the port. Knight F7 check. If it goes up, probably the best move. You don't have to take the knight because the knight looks very well placed in there. For the meantime, the bishop is not developed, so there's no point of capturing the bishop that is undeveloped on C8. Here, white can simply play C3, and the position looks very favorable for white.
I still don't know why not C7 with the check and with the rook at A8.
Knight C7 also is playable because we interpolated Queen A5 and Knight D6 check. So let's go back here real quick for the sake of clarification for everyone. So this was the position class. One of the possible mistakes that black can play in this position. By the way, the title of this lecture is The Jackal Attack. Okay? Now, that is the name of this opening that I found on the internet, named after that movie, The Return of the Jackal, or The Jackal. That's a 1970s movie. How many of you are familiar with that? This guy can take a lot of disguises, right? So, here, the idea of white was disguised in so many forms. And black cannot really understand what he's doing until the end result. So, after Bishop E7, Knight B5, capture. If we capture back, black doesn't have to capture. He can play A6. And after Knight D6, now F7 will fall anyway. So you see how bad the position is. So Queen takes, this is what Mitch was saying. Why not just go straight with Knight C7, check, and win the rook on the corner? This also wins. That gives you the conclusion that Bishop E7 is really wrong in the position, correct? It gives black several difficulty in most lines. So let's go back. Everybody following? No questions? So after Bishop G5, Queen A5 was a move by PD Master Mark Duckworth against me. Maybe the subject of next lesson. Here, Queen B6 is the main line, and this is what was played by National Master Craig Clawwitter. This is also the move played against me by the strong expert Hamlet Tobmashan in October 23 of 2015, last year. So I played this line exclusively for the last year until the turn of this year, 2016, when I start changing, overhauling my entire repertoire for chess. So here, there is a direct threat on B2, correct? Now, in a perfect world, probably, if we can only play Queen D2, however, Queen takes, he gain a pawn or something, or does he? For example, let's do it, Queen D2, Queen takes, what happened? We have Rook B1, and after Queen A3, we have Knight B5, and wherever the queen goes, the dark knight will pile here. In this case, is the white knight. Queen A4 or Queen takes A2, capturing with an attack on the rook. However, we have a beautiful mate here, class. Knight C7. Check. Very rare mate. You don't normally see those kind of mate in an actual game, correct? So here, black's position, no wonder they call it the Jackal. Right? It's probably not given a proper name in chess literature, but that's how they call it in the internet. And so here, queen a5 was played. However, I didn't play queen d2. I played the capture, pawn takes, and after bishop takes pawn, I find myself in a quagmire, a very difficult position, a dilemma. Because now, not only does black have an attack on b2,
F2 also.
black has an attack on f2, a double jeopardy on our part. Now, I said, what happened? Did I forget the sequence of move? I probably did. So instead here, how should we proceed in the position? If you're white, I'm probably ready to resign. What happened to those dreams of checkmate on the king? They're all gone, disappear. Because, for example, knight a5, knight a4 doesn't really help.
Bishop takes
Bishop takes pawn check immediately, right? And after bishop takes pawn check,
E2.
king e2, don't you think that the bishop will hang?
No. Check.
He can always check and regain the knight. He can have the bishop. The king lost the right to castle. Fair trade, but you know it's better for black, correct? So that's another line. However, I don't like my king unable to castle. I never like that. I always want my king to be safe and sound, secured. Okay? So the knight on c3, I said I'm not going to play knight c3 here. I still played queen d2, protecting the pawn, so that in case he captured queen takes b2 here, I have some sort of compensation for the missing pawn by, for example, rook b1, and after knight queen a3, again we go to this variation, knight b5. The only difference is that you cannot deliver checkmate because the king has f8 now. That's the only minor difference. So I probably missed something on the sequence of move. So that was my initial plan in the position in case he captured b2. However, National Master Craig Clawwitter is a very strong player, former California junior champ, right? Here, he delivered this move that I almost fell on my chair. Bishop takes f2 check. I turned red. I was perspiring. Oh my goodness, what happened? Did I just miss that? That's devastating because now this is the point. The only way to capture it is a queen. And now, a queen capture on pawn here attacks two pieces. The knight and the rook. I missed that. Honestly, I missed that class. Tactical. The tactics that took place, this is one that I missed. Now, this is a problem. Who do we depend and who do we protect and who do we preserve? The horse or the knight or the rook? The knight or the tower?
Well,
Very difficult, right? What's your decision?
if you save the rook, you're going to give him a check.
On
Takes the
c3?
knight, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Anybody?
thinking maybe knight d1, give him the rook, get the bishop out and castle.
That's probably playable. Anybody else? Anybody have an idea how to? This is a problem, a puzzle for all of us. How do we proceed from here? We're attacked.
Do you go the knight b5 or?
This is under attack with check. The rook is under attack. Here, I want you to follow this simple advice from me that with regards to two attack pieces, you defend the one that is already developed.
Queen d4.
Okay? This is undeveloped. And that always works, but as a general rule, and I applied that several times in my chess understanding, I will protect the knight that is developed because it can go up and create threats to black's king as a form of compensation. So here, my move was king d2.
Wow.
Yeah, really, wow. I played my idea is to trap the queen. A very rare sacrifice of a rook took place in the game. in a very important game against a very strong player. I said, this is my only chance to qualify for the International Open. If I don't win this tournament, there's no more chance for me. So he captured the rook, stood up, went around, looked from behind his back and said, you're goner. So I said, okay, I think I'm lost in this position. However, here, the positioning of the white's forces creates some kind of what you call unveiled threats. Hence the name Jackal attack. The reason is the idea of white are totally veiled from the opponent, that he thought that, you know, I made up the showing of my page that I made a mistake. I already analyzed this on my computer. That's what happened. I made it appear that I made a mistake. A very bad guy I am, right? so I made a poker face, or I made a show of an acting that, you know, that I made a mistake, and my opponent fell for it when he captured the pawn. And I saw this coming. I know that it's going to happen. It was played before, and here the next move is when the sacrifice of the rook was what we call excellent. The next move is super excellent. Bishop b5.
Yeah, I was thinking that. You can take the rook again.
Offering the second rook of the game. You don't normally see this in a chess tournament. And it's not for the faint of heart. This is only for the brave and the okay?
There's some sort of hate.
The queen has no place to go except queen b2. Of course, you might as well capture the rook, right?
He's totally undeveloped.
Now, what you notice here, the compensation we have for white is black was uncastled. Pieces are still jumbled there on the original squares. And we see a very dangerous line here that could create a checkmate. Your next move, please. Very good. The bishop b5 creates a pin
Right.
and an attack on the queen. And move, in order for it to be considered excellent, it contains not only one idea, multiple if it has to be, at least two. Here, the idea is the attack on the queen after bishop b5 and pin the knight that prepares the next move, which is queen c5, creating a threat of mate. All right. Now here we offer again the next pawn. After queen takes g to check, where should white go?
Knight back.
So, players start gathering on our board. I'm down several pieces. My knight is about to drop again.
If I were him, I would take the bishop, because you've already got two rooks.
So I went king c1. Right? And here, if he captured the bishop, that's probably that's the main line actually, and played knight c6 here. Knight c6 was played by national master Craig Clowitter. Now, before we go straight to this actual game, expert Hamlet of Mashan played f6 here. We will go back in this variation. After king c1, Hamlet played f6. So that he said after during the post-mortem that he could play king f7.
Wait, why not queen takes bishop c8?
Now we can do that.
Ap-
Now.
Is this
Yeah, that's under attack too. So after he played king d2, queen takes h1, queen c5, king c1, he played f6. And after I play ef6,
Why not just queen takes bishop check? It's great.
But then the knight takes the queen, right?
No, queen
No,
takes c8 check.
so here we probably play knight f6 here, knight c6, because this was played by Craig Clowitter. Knight c6. Let's go back to the original game. After knight c6,
Bishop takes knight, still threatening mate, right?
here we have to capture the knight because the queen is now really
Pin.
threatened. Bishop takes c6.
Now f6.
Right?
pawn takes?
After bishop takes c6, he captured the bishop. Queen takes g5
Yeah.
with check. That's what Mitch was saying. Now everybody following. He removed the main threat of mate there.
Knight takes queen.
Knight takes queen. Okay. After knight takes queen,
Pawn takes.
pawn takes.
Right.
Wait, but can you, if he takes the pawn, if you take the pawn, can't you win a respawn?
Queen takes c6 is what happened in the game. So here, the computer consider this as better for black. Right? Now, here, class, that is the computer. With human players, we tend to evaluate things differently, considering the situation on the board, the time that is happening, both clocks are ticking. There's a lot of pressure going on. Plus, here, if the computer doesn't have feeling, of course, he will consider it is better for black because of the two rooks. You start counting 5 and 5 and 10 plus 3 and 3 is 16. And we have 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So he is up 1 point with regards to pieces. 2, 4, 6, 2, 4. And he was up 2 points on the pawn. That means he's 3 points up or 1 piece.
Pawns are all I see.
Yeah. So no wonder that the computer will evaluate this as truly better for black.
Do you consider 3 pieces?
However, here I consider that in every successful king there is a queen. Right? I want to have a queen.
Wait, did the
I rather have a woman beside me than 2 bodyguards.
It's the black to move.
Right? Do you agree with that?
did come-
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right?
Did the computer calculate that the 3, that all black's pieces
It
were-
start calculating mathematically. So after queen takes c6, rook b8.
Now, I say
Okay.
knight takes
After
C6.
rook b8, now you see here, class,
Knight
that
takes c6. I would go knight takes c6.
knight takes e6,
Yes, because
sacrifice.
I like that. First of all, you keep it from castling,
Anybody else?
and you're getting 3 pawns for the knight.
Knight b5.
And it rook after rook b8. Who said? What else?
Right?
Knight b5.
Knight b5 with a threat of check,
But it's the castle.
but he's going to castle.
Queen c7 doesn't work.
Now here, the element of time is very important. We cannot really just make little threats. It has to be major ones. Right?
Queen d6.
Knight takes e6 is probably the other candidate move that you probably miss is knight takes d5.
That one, okay.
Now here, after knight takes d5, chess is about giving your opponent problem. And so under the given situation, I tried my best to keep National Master Clowitter under constant stress and give him a lot of problem in the position, even though I am in a disadvantage. You see, in the beginning, we sacrificed 2 rooks. We give up a pawn. We give up all these kind of things just for the unveiled threat on the opponent's king. And see here, the only thing on our side is time. Most of his forces are still on the back rank. And our queen and our 2 knights are far advanced. You see these 2 knights? Very beautiful. Earlier they were here. A curious case of the knight, once again, right? Now they are forward. And after he has to capture, why? Because, for example, he castle, knight check, king h8, and after knight takes bishop, this knight drops, and we regain some of our material investment, class, okay? So castling is a no-no, cannot. So after knight takes d5, ed5, okay, how do we justify that sacrifice on d5? There's
Queen c7 maybe?
There's 3 ideas on a sacrifice. One is to gain material. Second is to attack on the king. And the third is to create an opening,
e6.
right? Or you release certain pieces to be able to go through, right? So here is the removal of pawn on e6 allows the advance of pawn to e6. There you go. So I distract my opponent from safely tucking his king on the corner. I still give him problems. So under the given situation, the stress is too much, and it's hard to find even the best continuation in the position. E6 is very strong, don't you agree? It attacks the knight, it attacks the cover of the king, which is f7, right? And here, however, you have to remember as well that when the number of pieces are diminishing, the one with the better mathematically material advantage will prevail. And not in this position, it's still difficult. And so here, after e6, he finally castled and said, I can't allow my king to be caught in the crossbar. So he give back some of his material. He takes d7. Bishop takes d7. Queen takes d7. Now here, class, let's see. 1, 2, 3, all split pawns. It's ugly. The structure is just, your house is burning, right? There's no place for your king to hide. The only covering is the c2. Here, his pawns are very well intact. The king is finally safe. And now the rooks will finally make their way towards my king. First order of the day, he said, let me drive this knight away. It's causing me so much misery. Yeah, constant threat of f7 prevents my rook from developing into a better square. So after h6, where should you go? 2. There's only 2 square, maybe. h3 and f3, which is better? f3 because centralization is always the key. You have to centralize it, even though you're approaching the endgame stage. Okay? After h6, knight f3, rb to d8. You notice that in this position, we have 2 pawns under attack. Now, in a given rule, which one do you protect? The one that is in the center. The one is in the center needs protection because the pawns in the center are stronger than the pawn on the side. Okay? So after r bd8, queen takes a7 is what he wants me to play, and after that he placed the rook on that pile and he gained the a2, and that's probably the end of me. I cannot capture it's a poison pawn, right? There's venom written all over it. So what should we play? Queen f5. You notice, class, that I keep my pieces close to the proximity of my opponent's king, so that if given an opportunity, I still can create some type of threat, even though imaginary. So just still create a threat. Now, I don't know about you, but whenever my opponent's pieces are breathing in front of my king, I feel nervous. Right? And you do that to your opponent, they will always be on a constant watch of what's going to happen. These pieces are right there in my face. Okay? So queen f5. Well, what is guess next move for black? Of course, he coordinated his rook. Rf e8. Very nice. Proper coordination. Rooks. Now, without the knight, this is probably completely winning for black. The only difference right now that keeps me alive is this knight here. Right? Keeps the balance in the position. Knight e5. Okay, I told you I'm going to create threat even though the number of pieces diminish. So here now we have a threat on f7. How should you defend? If f6, that's a lot of weakness now here. We have created a weakness, and the transfer of knight either in g5,
d7,
or maybe knight c6, or knight d7. You're right, Jonathan. There's a threat of queen takes pawn check. Very good. Covering. So here, he played knight rook e7. I was happy because I said I have a fork. However, it's an illusion. because there's a check here. Rook e1 check. And after king d2,
Rook
rd
E8.
to e8. Now he developed a very dangerous command of the e file. Will always give black some sort of counterplay here. Now after rf e8, rd e8,
Takes D5.
this threat here is very dangerous.
Knight to
You can
d4.
avoid it. Up and around, because the knight's covered.
Can go here, and after the capture here, he might double rook on the 7th rank, and
d4.
right. Knight d4 was played. Attack and defense, attack and defense, attack and defense. You attack and at the same time defend, right? And the attack on d5 stays or remains. So after knight d4, what did he play? r1 to e5, protect that pawn. Where should the queen go?
D's.
Find a place that you can attack something every time.
Queen D7.
d7 attacks a7 because now the rooks are disorganized to create an attack on a8. They are now playing a horizontal type of attack, or vertical, I should say. Instead, the rooks are no longer on the back rank to create depends on the a7 pawn. So here, after queen d7, r8 to e7. Cannot be the other rook because if r1, the d5 drops. So now you see here, the rooks are always in danger of a fork. However, the fork is always an illusion because there's always a check. The check is really annoying. So here, after queen r8 to e7, queen b5 check. Now I'm willing for him to, after I move the knight to c6,
What check?
there's allowing the check. I will capture the queen, and now I will have a piece, and he has none.
What check?
So that's what I was aiming for, right? So, but he didn't play that. He played rook g5. Here you will see a very beautiful coordination of black's rook. Even in a very difficult position for black, he still play some of the best defense I've seen, right, against anyone. And the coordination of the rook is very important. He never gave up. So rg5, I play, the threat is here, check. Play knight f3, I allow the check because it protects the pawn. rg to check. Now I should probably play king e1,
No, because then
Because
rook
the
e.
rook will fork.
rook c7, or king c1, but then rook again there. So it's quite difficult here.
King d3.
So I played king d1. It's probably not the best in the position class, but you know the clock is ticking and we're almost
Did anybody
done away with the
draw at
time.
this point? Did
Huh?
anybody offer a draw at this point?
No, both the competitors are really hating each other here. So nobody wants to offer a draw. I am not going to offer a draw here. I mean, I have the queen. I have my queen on my side, right? I have a woman. So here, king d1 was played, g6. Now, if there is any trump in black's position, I believe these three musketeers over here. They will safeguard the king. They can create a passer, a pass pawn later on. Because these two are blocked. This is blocked and this is covered by c2 pawn.
Queen just takes.
If you will notice here that these two could go pass. Black can create two pass pawn in this position if he will play the best move. And that is what we're trying to avoid here as white. So after g6, we start rolling our pawn a4 so that if that drops, at least we have a passer ourselves. Now, in the position in endgames, you have to create a pass pawn every time. Push pawn, all right? It's the pawn's desire to expand is always there. It's always going to queen and to be promoted. Always take that in mind when you're approaching the endgame stage of a game. re3 was played attacking the knight.
Queen takes d.
What should we do?
Queen takes d5.
Queen takes d5 is playable.
You can check.
And for example, queen takes d5, which I didn't play. Probably just take it. This looks very scary, right? Because if the knight moves, this pawn drops. And if this advances,
Threatening mate.
the threat of mate, and suddenly you will ask yourself, what just happened? And you have to be careful. This type of situation where black is going for broke, right? So you have to be careful about the trick. So even I wanted to capture that pawn, I resist on the temptation. Temptations are lurking every now and then. So I played play safe, because he cannot play re to e2 unless the queen gives up the control of this diagonal or the e2 square. So there's only 2 square to go to protect the knight. Actually, there's only one, other than queen takes, is this one. Continue to protect the knight, attacks the rook, prevents the rook from reaching the desired 7th rank. So the white able to maintain, but we are now, notice that we are now in a very defensive position. The rooks are very active, and we have to be extra careful here. After queen f1, rook g4, we drive away one rook from the 7th rank. Thank goodness it's out of the 7th rank. We have to drive away another rook. This time he is on the 6th rank. So queen f2, and after d4, another trick. Because here, after d4, for example, we capture, what's going to happen?
Rook takes.
No, this rook drop. But there's a check.
Yeah.
We cannot capture because of the check. The king is on the wrong place. So, you see now the difficulty that white is facing in this position. Suddenly the initiative was transferred to black in this position. We no longer are attacking. We are under attack. Okay? So what should we play? We have to create some sort of fortress here with the help of the c2. Keep it there. The knight has to be in a very good position to ward off any more further attack by white. For the meantime, the main threat is rook g to f4, and we might as well resign because of the pin. So that gives you the clue of the next move. Move the knight to where? Knight e1. Very good. Now we're trying to visualize a knight on the center of the board like an octopus on d3, and try to prevent all the attack squares or the entrance for the rooks, so that our king will be safe and the queen can go on hunting soldiers, right? And so that we can create our own fast pawns. For the meantime, create a safety situation first for your king. So queen, knight e1, rook h3 was played. What is the threat? This is the threat, r g h4, and this one will drop. Very difficult. How should we play here? We cannot immediately go to our desired knight d3 because we need the knight to protect the pawn.
So knight back.
We are in a situation where only moves are required. So here we create still an idea of attack on the king. Queen f6 doesn't help because it doesn't prevent here. Actually, he just captured h2 and we're doomed. So here we attack the rook, queen e2, protect the pawn, creating an idea of check on,
Well, you'd have a pretty good.
right? So queen e2. So after rook f4, he played rook f4. Because after Rook G H4. I'll play knight F3. And after here probably I will offer a draw. We'll go back and forth. However, here my opponent start thinking that he's probably winning because he has the initiative, and that is very true. I will feel the same. So after Rf4, I played Queen E8 check.
G7.
G7 allow this check here, and this pin is forever going to hurt him. Now we can achieve our desired knight D3, maybe knight F4, and then knight D5, and the attack on the pinned rook is
Rook H5.
right. So the only move here after Queen E8 is King H7. And so now you see a little bit softening in Black's camp. This requires protection.
Because rook h4, you take.
Yes, the rook needs to be on this line to protect this pawn. So what we're aiming here as white is create a disharmony in Black's position. Because if he can coordinate his rooks very well, we're doomed. Here it's starting to look like his rooks are misplaced. Okay, so after King H7, knight D3 finally, our desired location, rook F1 check. Where should we go? Anyone?
Well, you can't go to E2 because you'll lose the queen, so you got to go to D2.
After, very good. However, here,
You lose the pawn.
rook, knight D3, rook F1 check.
Knight back.
I didn't lose a queen, Mitch.
Well, if he checks you with the rook,
Rook, queen takes.
then the pawn takes.
King takes the rook. We're winning. At first glance, did I miss something? Am I losing my queen here? But the good thing is the king was right there next to the rook. So you don't lose it. We're trying to gain this situation where the rooks are gone. The major pieces are all gone, and we are left with one piece and a pass pawn for that matter, right? As the king can ward off this armada of pawns here. So, very good point though. I almost, did I miss that? 4 years ago? So, it's not possible. Almost. That's probably why he played the check. He said, I can get his queen. King E2. So, King D2 is a blunder because resign.
Yeah.
Wait, is that?
Well, it's not against rook. Yeah.
It's knight against rook. Now, suddenly white has to resign.
Yeah.
Right? Because queen has to block, and rook takes, queen takes, and after rook h1, the pawn drops, and it's over for white. We might as well resign. Very tricky position, right? It's not over until it's over. My goodness, we have to keep our eyes open, always in a constant watch, because your opponent is like a roaring lion who is already, there's a lot of trouble in him that he wants to get back at you immediately. He wants to attack without thinking. They call it swindle mode. All right. So where is this? So King D2 no good. King E2 was played. Next move. Where should the rook F1 go, class?
H1.
Where?
H1.
You cannot, because remember I mentioned earlier that this pawn needs constant protection. So he has to go on this, one of these squares.
Rook f3.
F3.
F3 is playable, but oh, yes, F3 is good. All right. After rook F3, how should we deal?
Save the queen.
God save the queen? How do we deal with this threat here? For example, if he played there, queen b8. So after check, king d2, and we hide ourselves on the other side of the mountain. Okay? Because this cannot be captured because our queen
Queen is guarded.
is right there. So, a good try though. Instead, he played rook f5, maintaining Very nice coordination still of the rooks. Here, black's aim is to maintain the rooks in properly coordinated squares. So RE3, RF5, you can play A5 and everybody's protected, everybody happy. Queen B8, again protects this pawn. RF to H5, no more attack here, so he can leave this file.
And he doesn't care about queen takes.
Wait, knight F4. Oh, no,
Knight F4, there's a check. So after R, F, H5, white capture, queen takes A7, threatening this pawn, threatening this pawn. Okay, so everything becoming nice for white. So after rook takes H2 check, where should we go?
Oh, you can't go.
King to D1. Rook H1 check. Now again, if we go here, it's over. We should resign. Again, it's very dangerous. Not to the very last drop of his blood, this guy is really fighting like a warrior. Right? So the only move again is
E2.
no, knight.
Knight blocks.
Knight blocks. Now, if rook E5,
Queen takes F7.
queen takes F7, right? At least I said I have a draw. Check, check, check. If something really bad is going to happen there, at least I hold the chances of a draw perpetual. So, after knight E1, rook F7, F5 was played. His idea is to protect this and at the same time create. So I play A5. Or F to F1. Now everything is different now because we have a passer. We're willing to let go of the knight.
Queen E7.
Queen E7. RH5 attacks pawn. What should you play? Continue. Push pawn. A6. Rook A5 attacks the pawn. And if you're not careful, if you play A7,
Okay, one.
there is a rook A1 check, but the queen protects it. So there's no threat. Again, in a middle game or end game position situation, you always consider that what is the threat? Are there any captures? Are there any checks? Okay, threats, captures, and check. And by the way, may I add, watch out for the knight moves. The knight moves are very tricky. So simply A7. There's no threat. It's under protection. Okay, rook A1 check. King to D2. Rook takes E1. Queen. Oh, I'm sorry. Rook takes E1. Queen takes.
Why not queen takes pawn check? If he took with the F rook.
He took with the F rook. If check, we have a draw. But we don't want to draw. We want to win this time, right? That's probably also winning. But that's probably more complicated than what happens in the game.
King H8.
Because after King H6,
Check.
Check and then pawn up.
check here. How do we regain the missing piece?
Wait, queen at, what if queen F8?
Queen F8, still.
Pawn at up?
Oh, that's interesting.
Pawn up, and this is what's going to happen. To the very end, there's always a threat of mate. It's unbelievable. Can you believe this? It never ends. This guy is relentless. My goodness, there's so many tricks in the position. I would love to do that because I said I could probably create a perpetual. But then if you wanted more and you want another queen, come on, you can only have one queen in your life. Right? One is enough trouble. No? Am I right? So you can't really give time to both of them. So here, let's go back to this position. Sorry about that. So rook takes knight was done. Queen takes, and this is what is aiming for. Rook takes, removing the. What you see here, this is already
This is a very interesting game.
interesting. A new type of endgame arose.
9 to 11.
4, 3 with a rook. We only have one. This is probably going to drop. Now here is where technique comes in. The technique of a master shows up in this type of position. You have a one game, but the most difficult situation is how to win a one game. Right? It's easier in paper, but in actual, oh my goodness, this is not easy. These are threatening, right? So after queen takes, rook takes a7, king d3 first. First things first, remove this guy. Create another pass one. That is the order of the day. Rook c7. They said if you capture, I capture, then I won't have a pawn. This will be very hard. What should you play here? Attack and defense.
Queen
Defend here. Attack here.
Queen f2.
Very good. You see the what we call geometrical pattern of the board. There's a geometry here and here and here. All important vital points in the position. Okay, play in a geometrical pattern every time in your chess game. So queen f2. If you apply that principle of geometry in your chess game, you will notice some special points that they are related to each other. And so the queen was able to watch all those important points. So queen f2.
Rook d7.
Where should black play?
Rook d7. He's got to go to d7.
Okay. Rook d7. He has to guard the pawn on d4. And now what?
1, 2, 3.
It seems that there's no way to crash through. This is dependent. As long as this remains, white's chances are not really that great. Am I right? And for the meantime, if these are allowed to go forward, we might even be in danger. It is enough here, class, for black to create some sort of fortress.
Yep.
As long as he removed this, for example, these are gone, and we have king and queen. If he can create a fortress like this, this is probably at least a draw for black and maybe even winning. Okay? This is what he's aiming for. Now, that was he's trying to visualize. It is hard to make it happen on the board with the clock ticking next to you. So, and it is for us to prevent that. First of all, we don't want the king to get back in the game. So what should we do? Queen f6. Thrust her there next to the king. So queen f6. h5. Okay, the pawn starts marching. That should be played. Any suggestion? Anyone? The king is a powerful piece in the endgame. Use the king. King e4, king g8.
What about queen c6?
Queen c6 was played. Very good, Mitch. Attacking the rook. Rook d8, preventing the check on the back rank and keeping this protected because he cannot check. If he check, you just capture, then white should win because we have a passer. He tried to keep this pawn alive at all costs. You know, saving private pawn. Right? You have to keep it alive or else your whole position crumbles. He has to be saved. So, rook d8.
King f4.
Queen c7, chase him all the way to the ends of the earth.
Okay. Oh, he's got to leave.
He has to leave the defense of the d4 finally. Did we able to achieve our aim? Yes, here we did. After queen c7, rook e8. Okay, now after the pawn drops, we can at least have a sigh of relief. We have a passer. We have a guarantee that the game again is back on white's. Right?
How long was this game?
This game is a 6-hour game.
Wow.
There are 40 moves for 2 hours, and you are given another hour each to finish the game. So that's total to 6.
Right.
Yes, 2 and 2 is 4, plus 1 is 6. So, and we were the very last one that finished in Metropolitan this game. It's very crucial. Whoever wins again between me and him will win the qualifier. So after King takes D4, what's next? Let's just finish here real quick. F5. Now you see there is what we call the king got cut up after F5. But you cannot suggest any more moves. It's hard to suggest. Any advanced move will render this pawns, given to the, for example, it's gone. It's just like that. It's really hard to find a move. With G5 is the same thing, right? You provoke the advance, the weakening here. That's 1, right? And if it continue to go up, right? You start when it advanced too far from the king and the rook, it become very weak, and you can have munch on them later on. So F5 was played. After F5, Queen D7, attack the rook. So the difference between the queen and the rook is evident in this game. The queen, who is multi-dimensional, and the rook that can only play horizontal and vertical move. You see now the major difference in their strength in this game.
Rook E4
Okay?
check, maybe?
After rook E4 check, King D3, H4. At first glance, I say, oh my goodness, my opponent is really not giving up. This looks threatening now because of the arrival of the rook on E4. And then if we can go play rook G4, and it looks a very good position. However, don't lose hope because we have a fast C-pawn, and soon we will have 2 women on our side.
Okay.
Okay, and that's always a good thing, right, man? No, it's not a good thing. No. So H4, C4, H3. He cannot go further. If he does, there is a check, and no matter where the king goes, there's a check on C7, drops the pawn. That's it. That's the farthest you can go, man. Don't go any further. You will lose it. So here, H3, C5, King F8 was played so that if you check, there's rook E8, and the pawn won't drop. However, we simply play C6. And after rook E7, the game actually ended here. And for example, what should we play here?
You could play C6. Oh, you can't play C6.
You just play Queen D6, prevents, pin, allow the advance, and black has to resign. Oh, exactly 1 hour. I hope everybody enjoyed the lecture this morning. Very good. We covered.
One of those games 100 years ago with the queen taking both rooks on the
Yes. The major theme that you notice is the double rook sacrifice. I show a similar game last Saturday, the double rook sacrifice. That one against Utah's number 2 player. This time again is another double rook sacrifice. Now in the whole annals of chess history, you only see one great player that actually did a double rook sacrifice, and that is no other than world champion Alexander Alekhine. And I'm so proud to show you this game because I'm now in his no, just playing, joking. Thank you so much, everyone. See you next Saturday.